The sun has finally got his hat on here in Sherborne, and the wildlife action is hotting up too.
We've had some nest eruptions and some savage feeding frenzies.
It's kept us on the very edge of our seats.
And the suspense doesn't end there, as I'll be fishing for a very shy bird that is a must-see.
It's sunny, it's spectacular, it's full of surprises. Oh yes, it's Springwatch.
Yes, hello and welcome to Springwatch 2018, coming to you from the wonderful Sherborne Park Estate up here in the heart of Gloucestershire, run by the National Trust, and we're going to be live here for the next 60 minutes and tomorrow too and all of next week. Now, last night I was going through the Springwatch Twitter feed, come up with a couple of beauties here. First one, this one's really nice. It says, I really appreciate your fantastic retro knitwear. So fans of the shirts are really pleased with that. But this was my favourite.
I didn't see that one.
Oh, no,
You made that up.
Dear Springwatch, I love the show. The fledgling mandarins were okay, but please, 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 can we have more of those fantastic tree slugs? And that one from Christine Packman. Now, Christine, I'm really sorry that we don't have any more of those slugs tonight, but we do have aphidius. Now, aphidius is not a word that's on the nation's lips at this point in time, but let me tell you, after the programme, in every pub across the country, in every schoolyard tomorrow, aphidius will be the word to know. And later in the programme, I'm going to be affixing a scale model of Ixodes vespilionis onto Michaela's chest, which is something you may or may not want to miss. And also, very shortly, we've got fecal sack save of the season. So at this point in time, I suggest you ring your mates and say, tune in to Springwatch, because it's going to be absolutely brilliant. But before all of that excitement and action, let's just calm things down a little. Let's cut to our brook cam on this lovely, serene, sunny evening. Oh, look at that. You can feel the warmth. You can see the mayflies rising from the surface of the water, dodging the hungry trout. And somewhere, hiding amongst the verdant foliage on the bankside, is a kingfisher, just waiting for that little moment. It's lovely, isn't it?
It is lovely, and it's good to have a little bit of calm before the storm, because after yesterday's show, we've realised that anything can happen, quite frankly. But did you know, have a guess, how many chicks do you think have left us since the beginning of the series, Yolo?
24.
No, wrong. It's 47. 47 chicks.
By left us, does that mean...
No,
fledged?
37 have fledged, 10 have been predated or scarpered. And I must say, after last night's show, I thought that figure would be higher. It seems to be higher, doesn't it? But anyway, we may have a few more to add to that list soon, because we're on fledge watch for some of our birds, especially the goldcrest. So let's have a look at them live right now. Now, I was watching this nest just an hour ago, and there was one right on the edge flapping its wings. But I'm very pleased to say that now they're all quite cosy in that nest, because this is not a great time, as we've witnessed, this is not a great time for a young chick to fledge. But let's have a look at those chicks and how they looked a week ago, because they've changed so much in just a week. There we go, you can see the difference. One of them the 31st of May, and that's them today. And you can see that they're ready to go. I mean, look at all that wing flapping. And in fact, at 12:19 today, one of them decided it had done enough wing flapping and it fledged. It went out into the trees, chilled for a bit, but then we realised it didn't fledge. It actually semi-fledged and it went back into the nest. But then you've got to look closely, because I want you to watch this. Look at this. One puts its little bum over. Look at that. Did you see that? We've got to replay that, because that is the catch of the season. The adult caught that fecal sack in mid-air. Sign him up for the England cricket team.
Oh, if only that goldcrest had been present at the European Cup final.
Liverpool have already paid 50 million for him. The bid has gone in. It's already gone. It's already gone.
If you were watching the show on Monday and Tuesday, you'll know that we've had high drama in our barn next to the studio. We've got a little owl's nest there, but just around the corner was a brood of blackbirds. The first one fledged on Monday and was immediately taken by the female little owl and fed to the chicks. On Tuesday, the remaining 3 chicks got round to fledging, the last one leaving in the evening, prime time for an owl to attack it. They hopped out into the barn. They're being well provisioned by the female and male, but of course the little owl is ever there and watching, looking for an opportunity to help itself to an easy meal. And there they are, up in the rafters, plenty of food coming in. What about an update from this point in time? Well, let's go live now to our barn. And there we can see, oh, on the floor, in the worst possible position, is one of our young blackbirds. And you can hear the blackbird adults. Look at that. I think we've got a shot. Can we see the owl present at this point in time?
It's doomed.
Honestly, I think that because it's been out of the nest now for at least 24 hours, that its wings are probably strong enough to be able to flap and fly away to safety.
Michaela, did you see the eyes on that owl staring down? It's getting dark. It's doomed. It's doomed.
I'll tell you, my positivity is being worn down.
It's no good. It's no good. And yesterday, of course, we introduced you to a brand new bird, and it was a real stonker, the long-eared owl. Now, this is a nest in a pine wood in Uplands, South Wales, and these are really difficult nests to find. The BTO reckon that there's something in the region of 3,500 pairs in the whole of the UK. Under-recorded, I reckon, Chris, because it's so hard to find. But you listen, that's the female calling to the male. The male is provisioning, and he has been bringing in a tremendous amount of food. So the chicks, 3 chicks in all, they are growing really well. And I want to point out, see the black substance on the nest. At first I thought they were pellets. I thought the female had been bringing up pellets around the edge of the nest. It's not. It's plastic. We were talking about plastic pollution yesterday because she's put the nest on top of an old squirrel tray, and the squirrel must have dragged that up, lined the nest, and it's still in there now. But here she is sitting there, look. The nest is maybe about less than 10 metres up, so it's not that tall. It's out to the way of a lot of predators up there, but there are a few knocking about, and one bird you'll find in that wood is a tawny owl. Now, a tawny owl to a long-eared owl is very dangerous, because long-eared owl, it looks like a big bird, but actually isn't. It weighs around 290 grams. Female tawny owl, 520 grams. And they do predate on long-eared owls. Now, that was a few days ago. Let's have a look at the chicks now. They are much bigger. The eldest chick here, you see 3 of them. The eldest chick here now is about 17 days old. So that means that the youngest one is probably about 13 days old, almost 2 weeks old. What will happen from now on in is that they will start to branch. Tawny owls do exactly the same. They'll start to leave the nest and walk out along those branches. See the male coming in and provisioning again. And I mentioned earlier 3,500 pairs. People often ask, how do we survey for long-eared owls? Where do we find them? Well, the thing is, they're far more widespread than people believe. And the way to survey is either to go out with a long-eared owl tape in March and walk Woodland Edge, or go out now, from now on in, as the chicks grow, because they make more and more noise. See, there's a siskin there hanging about. If I was that siskin, I would be out of there, because long-eared owl eats a wide variety of prey, including small birds. So that's siskin, Michaela, unfortunately.
Now, I'm going to concentrate on the owl because I loved it when you saw the little chick under the wing. That was really quite gorgeous, and I think that's become my favourite nest, actually.
It's a real privilege to be able to look into a nest like that. As you mentioned yesterday, very few opportunities ever to see these birds, let alone have a privileged view into their private life like that.
Do you know what, over the years I've seen maybe 12 long-eared owl nests, and it's a snapshot. It's the adult coming off.
Yeah.
Or I see the eggs, or I see the chicks. Never before have I been able to watch a nest like that. So as you say, it is a real privilege.
Now, Gillian's been up in Yorkshire all week, and she's been exploring reserves that were once coal mines, but they're now full of wildlife. And each day she's been visiting a different one.
For the past few days, we've been exploring this area here. We've been following these amazing conservation success stories. This region of Yorkshire was deep mining country at one time, and it's full of stories of where post-industrial landscapes were returned to rich habitats like this. The RSPB Reserve at Oldmoor, where we are today, is no exception. This place was a complete post-industrial apocalyptic scene, and this is what it looks like today. But let's have a look at what it looks like before. There were 32,000 miners that were employed in 30 deep coal mines in this region, and in the late 1980s this whole industry was brought to its knees. But a handful of birders, they were miners in the past, but they became birders, and they took on the task of regenerating this landscape. And this is what happened. They filled in the land, and we got this mosaic of lakes and wetland. Now, what's absolutely striking is that anyone actually bothered to do this. It must have seemed like an impossible mountain to climb, but they did it, and this is the result at Oldmoor today. There's a beautiful mosaic of reed beds and lagoons and a rich habitat, and this attracts in the aquatic birds and all their young. And of course, at this time of the year, they're all busy raising their chicks, and there is plenty of food here. Invertebrate prey, supporting birds like herons. Really, really good fishing here. But there was one species that conservationists really, really wanted to attract here, and this was the bittern. Now let's look here. This map here shows the strongholds in the UK. Over here in East Anglia is one stronghold, their breeding grounds here, and up here in Lancashire. And this is where we are at the moment. This is Oldmoor, and it is directly on the flight path of the two reserves. So what the conservationists were asking was how to get the bitterns to touch down and breed here. And what they had to really do is figure out what a bittern wants and what a bittern needs. Now, what a bittern needs is a place to hide, a place to nest, a place to breed, and a place to feed. So what they did was they planted these reed beds. And in 1999, the first bittern overwintered here to great excitement, but it didn't breed, and that's because there wasn't enough food. So the RSPB released 100,000 eels, bitterns' favorite food, in this area a little over 20 years ago. And did it work? Well, this was the result. They've been monitoring and surveying these rivers here, and today this is the result of one. Look at the size of these beautiful, beautiful fish. This is just such a healthy habitat. They are really thriving here. We're going to let them go because they have done their job. And we're going to tip them over the side. And away they go. So that really shows this whole reed beds, as we've been looking here today, are absolutely packed full of these eels. And there is a really critical biomass that the bitterns need in order to breed here. And that is 10 kilos per hectare. And they're way more than that in this reserve. That is the magic number as far as bitterns are concerned. And later in the show, we're going to see how this how successful this project's been, and why this reserve is now the best place in Britain to see a bittern. But for now, it's back to Sherborne, to Chris and Michaela.
I know what she's saying. I know what Gillian's saying there. They're hoping to get a live bittern.
Oh, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Wow, yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and if we do, we'll obviously go to it. Now, one of the live cameras that we've got is way in the distance over there, and it's a fascinating live camera on the maternity roost of bats. Let's have a look at it live. Now, these are lesser horseshoe bats, and I say it's a maternity roost. A lot of those females in there are pregnant. There are 300 bats altogether, and we've got our live cameras in there because we're hoping that we might see a baby bat, and if we were really lucky, we might actually see one giving birth. Obviously not the baby bat, the mother. But let's have a look at what's been going on, because it's fascinating watching these bats. This is where they are. They're in an old dog kennel. can see there's lots of activity going on there. They're quite fidgety, these bats, but 30 minutes before the sun sets, that's when they start getting active, because they'll go out after sunset and they're stretching, they're huddling together, they're warming up, they're flying, and then they'll spend the night hunting outside. But take a look at this particular one, and you may notice it's got something attached to it. Now, can you see what that is? It is a huge tick. Look at the size of that. So that poor bat has got a massive tick attached to its chest.
Hold on, you say poor bat. What about the lucky tick?
Well, I suppose you could look at it like that.
Ticks, all sorts to make the world go round. I happen to be quite a fan of ticks. Ticks are interesting animals. They are blood-sucking parasites. There are about 900 species around the world, and they've been around for about 156 million years. They're highly successful, about 20 species in the UK. Now, those that we typically see, because they're much larger than the males are tiny, are the females. Here is a drawing of a female tick here. You'll notice that it's got 8 legs. They're not insects, they're actually arachnids. They're related to spiders and scorpions. And this is what they look like before they've got to their full adult size and they've started to drink blood. But when they started to fill themselves with blood, which they need in order to produce their eggs, it's then that they swell up and produce these characteristic large-bodied sacs like this, and that's the animal that we are seeing on the bat. Now, that particular tick can grow to about 1 centimetre in length when it's filled with blood, which means that on a bat that's only 3.5 centimetres long, it's absolutely huge. So to demonstrate just how big it would be, I've got a model here of that tick. And Michaela, if you would stand up,
Yeah.
Imagine having that stuck on your chest like that and carrying it around.
I mean, no one wants melons that size attached to their chest, do they?
They certainly
I mean, look
don't.
at that.
Imagine
Trying to fly with that. It's bad enough trying to hold it. Imagine trying to run with it. It's just it's going to be most uncomfortable.
Not going to be comfortable at all. We've got a species here which we can have a look at. We think that this is the long-legged tick, Ixodes vespertilionis, and this is a species which we typically find on lesser horseshoe bats. Some tick species are very species specific, others you can find on other different animals as well, typically the sheep tick, the one that you'll get on your dogs or your cats or even yourself if you're walking through the countryside at this time of year. But they also occur on birds. We've had a couple of pictures sent in to us. Look at, you can see them here on this great tit. We think that this is Ixodes arboricola, and on the sand martin here, another species which actually will go on great tits too, which is Ixodes leviticus.
And
So
it's not
that's
just
a
birds, of course,
fantastic
though.
sight, yeah.
Is it? I mean, they attach themselves to mammals too. I mean, I've had a few ticks on me, I'm sure you have. But look at this poor hedgehog. Look at the hedgehog. It's in his eye. That must be extremely uncomfortable. But you know, on some mammals, having a tick on them means that you can identify individuals. And that's exactly what we did yesterday.
What do you mean we?
When a weasel predated our yellow hammers. And look, you can see the tick on the back of its head there. A couple of days ago, we saw a weasel predate the white-throat.
Yeah.
And look, the tick is in exactly the same place. So we know by that tick that that is the same weasel. I know I dismissed it a bit yesterday, but I was, you know, I was feeling sorry for the chicks. But now I find it really interesting today.
Oh, yeah,
it's amazing how you can change.
Oh, yeah, it's in the detail with naturalists. It's always in the detail. Devil's in the detail. You've got to keep a keen eye for those sorts of things. Now, in the field of ornithology, there are many experts, there's no doubt about that. But some people, when it comes to the study of an individual species, are a cut above the rest. Derek Ratcliffe studied peregrines for years. He's the god of peregrines. Ian Newton, a great scientist who studied raptors. But there is another, a man called Eddie Balfour, who studied hen harriers on the Orkneys. Raymond Besson, one of our cameramen, has been out on the Orkneys to see how in-depth the study was, because he too, rather like myself, is a fan of Eddie.
And without knowing it, he showed me that I could follow my passion too. Now, as a wildlife cameraman, I can appreciate the behaviour and understand it at a greater depth. all due to Eddie's research. His old diaries have been kept under lock and key in the library. To be able to look through his notes and sketches for the first time was something really special. His passion and dedication is evident in his writings.
My first contact with this magnificent hawk was in the 1920s. I immediately fell under its spell, and though I have been in contact with these fine birds on an increasing scale ever since, and can claim to be more familiar with them than most people, this familiarity has never bred contempt.
The meticulous nature of Eddie's obsession and data collection led to the revelation that the hen harrier population in Orkney was unique. Surprisingly, unlike other areas in the UK, females in Orkney outnumber males by 2 to 1. The females have distinctive white patches on their tail feathers, while the pale ashen males have jet black wingtips. And due to this unusual sex ratio, it's often the females, not the males, who perform an aerial display to attract a mate. A balletic sky dance which mesmerises me as much as it did Eddie.
As befits a species endowed with magnificent powers of flight, the courtship and mating displays of the hen harrier are chiefly aerial. At times they make spectacular dives which begin as merely undulating flight, but develop and increase in steepness as the season progresses.
With the females having to fight for the attention of a male, they can come to blows. Their territories not only overlap with each other, but also with other raptors. This peregrine is soon given its marching orders. Eventually, the female pairs up briefly with a male. However, Eddie's work revealed that here in Orkney, the males are in such demand that they often have to pair up with more than one female, provisioning multiple nests. This unusual behaviour continues today, and seeing these birds through Eddie's eyes gives me a deeper level of understanding of them. And helps me realise how wonderful they are, and how lucky I am. It's not just a legacy that he leaves in me, but hopefully his work and love for these birds will continue to inspire future generations here on Orkney.
Hen harrier, what a bird. You know, I found my first ever hen harrier nest when I was 9 years old, and I've been monitoring them ever since. And for me, the first real sign of spring is when I see a hen harrier sky dancing on the Welsh moors. And Eddie Balfour, what a legend. He was campaigning and monitoring hen harriers when they'd been persecuted to extinction on the British mainland. Great film, great bird, great man. Now, we've got a nice selection of birds of prey here at Sherborne. When people ask me how do I monitor them, usually people say, well, you've got to walk through the woodlands, walk the hills. Forget all that. Get yourself a nice comfortable chair like this, especially on a wonderful evening like we've got tonight. Sit down, make yourself comfortable, don't rush. Get yourself a pair of binoculars and just wait, because the birds of prey will come to you. And what have we got here? Well, we have the common buzzard, of course. It's quite widespread now, familiar to everyone. Broad wings, round tip, short tail, 14 active nests here on the estate. We also have the kestrel, a falcon, Pointed wings, of course, and I love the Old English name, windhover, and kestrels are actually declining throughout the UK, but here on the estate we have 3 pairs. We also have the red kite. Now go back 100 years, the red kite was extinct everywhere in the UK apart from a handful of pairs in central Wales. Now, thanks to a lot of hard work, reintroduction is fairly widespread. Distinctive long forked tail there too. We also have hobbies, we also have sparrowhawks, but there's one very charismatic raptor that we don't have here. So last weekend I met up with an old mate of mine, Steve Roberts, the Springwatch nest finder, to try and track one down. It's good habitat in it. It looks perfect in it here.
Yeah, well spaced, big timber, and there's a bit of splash there.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, right here on the fern there.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Oh, you are, Yol. Look, there's a molted feather there.
Oh, look at that.
You know, that's just confirms their year.
And typical, isn't it? This mottling here, and the barring too. And if you turn it over, you can see that the barring is on one side and not on the other there.
The female starts molting when she's sitting.
Yeah.
The male's usually in good nick because he's doing most of the hunting. Only if you find one on the floor, it's often close to the nest.
Yeah, it's remarkable how many signs there are if you know what you're looking for and you know where you're looking as well, Steve. Oh, look down here, look. We've got a kill down here, Steve.
Yeah.
Look at that, look.
Oh, a pigeon, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be typical of what they eat. All the signs we want.
Yeah, all the signs we want. So the nest has got to be here somewhere.
And here it is, Yol, up the top of there.
Wow. That's a big nest, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, huge.
Because it's a goshawk feather.
Yeah.
It's a goshawk nest. They put the nest right by the tree trunk.
Yeah, where it's stronger, you know, because it's a big old nest, you know, bigger than most other raptors. A buzzard and a goss are about the same size. Goss nest is usually much bigger than a buzzard. They potentially have more young. They can have up to 5 chicks in a nest. But they need these big open woodlands, you know, well-spaced trees, because they move around under the canopy hunting, which is why people don't see them. The nest with the camera on is only, what, half a kilometre in a straight line from here. It's as close as that, you know, and yet you could wander around all day and never see one.
The goshawk, the phantom of the forest. And as Steve said on there, we've actually got a camera on another nest nearby. So let's go and have a look at that now. Look at that. Look at those 2 chicks. See the one at the back? Huge talons. That's almost certainly a female. Massive nest again. Enormous nest. Here comes the adult bringing in food. In this case, it's a grey squirrel. And this pair has been bringing in more grey squirrels than anything else. And the range of prey that goshawks will take is phenomenal. From small birds like siskins and crossbill, through grey squirrels to pigeons, sometimes even hares and other birds of prey too. But they're very good parents. Here she is provisioning, cutting up that prey into small bits of meat and feeding them there. How fantastic is that? What a bird. Do you know what? I remember climbing up to a goshawk nest once many years ago, and the female didn't go very far. She sat on a branch and looked at me, and it was the look of death. I have to say, Monday, yellow wagtails. Yesterday, long-eared owls. Today, goshawk. Phew, I'm overcome with emotion. The rest of the show, Chris Michaela, it's over to you.
I'm a bit miffed, actually. Yolo's had all the best birds, hasn't he?
That is a stonking bird, isn't it?
Goshawk,
What an
nothing
amazing
beats it.
bird.
Avian terminators they are. That look that you mentioned, when they look at you, eyes front, you know, it sends a shiver down your spine. Goodness knows what it does to a squirrel.
Well, from the fabulous to the familiar, let's go to our blue tits. Don't laugh. Let's go to our blue tits because we haven't seen them for a while, and let me tell you, I think they're going to be fledging fairly soon, so we need to make the most of them. They're in a nest box. There they are. There are 11 chicks. They're 16 days old, and they're all looking pretty good. Let's have a look at what they looked like last week. This is what they looked like then, 10 days old. So you can see how much they've changed in just a week. They've really developed, they're much more fluffy. There's a lot of, look at that, a lot of wing flapping going. So as I say, we might see them go in the next day or two. But just look what happens now. Now we know the male and the female have been feeding them, and the male is there, and then look what they do. There's clearly a predator outside. Or is there? Now, that's another blue tit. That is not the mum, that's not the female. But this is extraordinary behaviour. They're clearly concerned about whatever is coming in. Does it go in? Yes, it does. And look at the male. He is not happy about that, and he chases the other blue tit off. Now, why would that blue tit come in that nest? It's clearly not going to predate the chicks or anything.
No predatory intentions. It's definitely not, you know, sort of feeding the birds by mistake. It's almost as if it's just sort of flown into the wrong nest box. It's like it's been out drinking all night. You know, what one of us at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning hasn't tried to get the key into our neighbour's lock at some stage or another? I think that's what it is, you know. It's just a drunken tit, basically.
He's just being a tit.
I think it probably is that, just that.
Let's just rewind a bit from those chicks to the eggs and take a look at the eggs, because this is what a blue tit egg looks like. But the question is, why is it that shape?
And that's a very good question. So let's think about egg shape. Let's take size and colour out of the equation. Just think about the shape. Now, there have been many theories over the years as to what influences that shape, how they need to be incubated, the relative strength of the egg, the economy of how much shell you need to the interior part of the developing egg as well, where the pores are, all sorts of things. But then, last year, a lady called Mary Caswell Stoddard at Princeton University in the United States did a study of eggshell shape. And she measured no less than 49,000 bird eggs from 1,400 different species, and she saw that they fell into a number of distinct categories. Asymmetrical eggs, basically those that are thick at one end and thin at the other end. Elliptical eggs, which are even and symmetrical, and then spherical eggs here. And she discovered an astonishing relationship. It's nothing to do with all of those incubations and size of egg and surface area to volume ratio. It's actually to do with the efficiency of how well a bird flies. And what she found was that birds that are particularly good and efficient flyers tend to lay eggs which are asymmetrical or elliptical. Those birds which are poor flyers or even flightless, well, they lay eggs which are spherical in shape.
And I think a perfect example of that, of a spherical egg, is the ostrich egg. I mean, that is the ultimate flightless bird. And look at that, it's huge and it's spherical.
It is virtually spherical. But what about birds that we might have here in Sherborne? Do any of them lay spherical eggs or anything close to it? Well, they do, actually. Tawny owls have eggs which are very, very close to spherical. And why is this? Because they can clearly fly. Well, they can fly, but they're not great flyers. They're sedentary, they're not migrants. They don't move from continent to continent. You don't see them soaring around. They basically hunt by sitting in a perch, listening or looking for things, and then swooping down and grabbing it. They don't even fly very fast. They catch their prey by surprise. So they're not particularly accomplished flyers. What about other species in the UK which are undoubtedly accomplished flyers? Well, we've got a couple we can look at. Firstly, the peregrine falcon here. Now, we know that these birds can stoop at speeds of nearly 200 miles an hour. They can move over large distances, and they have an egg which is pretty close to elliptical, a little bit aspherical. And then the swift. Here's a bird which flies very fast in level flight, of course, and moves from continent all the way down to Africa. And again, it has that elliptical egg there. So it seems to fit Mary's rule quite well.
But then look at my diagram, because these are eggs of an emperor penguin and a guillemot. Now, penguins don't fly at all, guillemots aren't great flyers, so why have they got an asymmetrical egg? Well, they may not be able to fly in the air, but they're superb flyers under the water. Now, we've all seen footage like this. They are brilliant at just flying through the water, and they need that really sort of amazing shaped body to just get through the water like that.
It's amazing, isn't it? So they are, in fact, pretty good flyers, and therefore they fit the rule. So what is it about these flying birds that leads to the shape of egg? Well, it's to do with the shape and form of their body. Basically, if they are narrow and they're compact, this leads to them developing a relatively short oviduct, and the best shape to get the maximum volume into your egg, therefore, is an asymmetrical or an elliptical one. And that's why we think birds lay eggs in those particular shapes. It's fascinating stuff, isn't it?
It is, because we used to think it was because of where they nested.
Yeah,
so
all
that
sorts
is
of other theories.
new science.
Turns
really
out to be
interesting.
flying. OK, now at the top of the show, I promised you Aphidius. Aphidius, yeah. Now, this is something that's probably slipped and passed you by, it passed me by. But I can guarantee that if you have a garden and you were to go out tomorrow in that garden, you could meet this extraordinary creature face to face. And its life history, its lifestyle is absolutely amazing. Let's take a close-up look at it now.
Between the neat, ordered rows of carrots and lettuces, a miniature arms race is in progress. The tender spring growth is the site of a deadly jewel. Aphids, greenfly, sap suckers. Their numbers can reach plague proportions and be the scourge of any garden. Succulent young plants are a banquet for these pests. Their probing mouthparts spearing into the soft plant tissues to draw out sap. Around the garden in spring, healthy aphids reproduce asexually. Unchecked, a single female could spawn 600 billion descendants. But in this garden, the beleaguered plants have an ally. Something is beginning to stir. This tiny creature is Aphidius, a parasitoid wasp, and probably the best friend a gardener never knew they had. An adult just 2 millimeters long emerges. And on this warm spring day, it's not alone. Around the veg patch, countless adult wasps are emerging. They are the aphid's nemesis and can reproduce at a similar rate, each female hatching 100 offspring in just a fortnight. These wasps may be newly formed, but their instincts are raring to go, and soon they start to mate. Fertilization complete, they turn their attention to the aphids, and the hunt is on. The aphids that see them coming battle to kick them away. But for many, the speed and maneuverability of the wasps is too much. Curving their abdomen forwards, the females use their ovipositors in a precise, sting-like action. Their antennae stroke the aphids to pinpoint the perfect spot for the attack. But it isn't venom that they're injecting. They're impregnating each aphid with a single egg, plunged deep into the body cavity. The aphids appear undeterred for several days. But inside, the tiny egg is hatching into a maggot that begins to eat them alive. The grub saves the vital organs until last, keeping their blighted hosts fresh for as long as possible. A gruesome natural pest control. It's an ongoing war. The battlefield is littered with mummified aphid corpses. Consumed from within, the host eventually dies, leaving a desiccated shell housing the developing wasp. New adults soon chew their way out, eager to resurrect the life cycle all over again. This is a numbers game, and whilst the aphids start ahead, the wasps aren't far behind. It's a deadly miniature arms race taking place right under our noses in veg patches, allotments, and greenhouses across the land.
What a wasp.
What? I mean, that is...
What a wasp.
That is an amazing wasp, isn't it?
Oh,
but a little bit horrifying, but...
I hate to say it, but that's what you pay your licence fee for. That's what you pay your licence for. Absolutely. I love these parasitic wasps. In fact, our cameramen have been out and about on the Sherborne Park estate, and one of them found this. Now, this is an extraordinary group of male Rissa, and they are also called sabre-tail wasp, although it's only the females that have the sabre tail. And what these males are doing at the moment, Michaela, is they're sniffing around with their antennae because a female is going to emerge from beneath that bark, where it has previously parasitised another wasp larvae or a beetle larvae. And somehow or other, these animals are flying around here and they can sniff that female beneath the bark, and they're waiting for her to come out so they can mate with her, and then she's going to use her 4 centimetre long ovipositor. 4 centimetres, I'm talking the big ovipositor here. What are you laughing for?
You're a fan of parasites, aren't you?
I love these wasps. I could go on forever, but I better
could.
stop. I better stop.
No, they are great. Amazing life cycle. But let's go from parasites to predators. And our little owls that we've been featuring, they've become known as the predatory neighbours of the blackbirds. But I think now the blackbirds have fledged, let's focus on the little owls themselves and their chicks. Let's have a look at the nest live. Now there are 3 chicks in there. You can we see any of the chicks? Yes, you can just see one there. They're 11 to 13 days old now. But their parents have been fantastic. I mean, they've been mobbed by those blackbirds. I know they predated the blackbird chick, but they've been really diligent with their own chicks. And this is what they've been doing the last few days. They've been bringing in plenty of food. Now, that first prey item is a cockchafer beetle. And I think that the chicks thought they were going to share it, but no, one has decided to take the whole thing, struggles to swallow it a bit. You can see that, I mean, although these chicks are just 11, 13 days old, you know, they're not very developed, but then they don't fledge until they're about 37 to 40 days old, so they've got a lot of growing left to do. The parents continue bringing things in. I think that last one was a vole. This one, the chicks are sharing nicely. And I'd say they're developing well, and now that the blackbirds have gone, then obviously they can really put all their attention, the parents, into these chicks. There's also a wood mouse that they bring in, and then they finally bring in a worm, and I think everyone's a bit full up, and they end up caching that worm.
Now, you said the blackbirds have gone. They're not. They're still out there in the barn. They're on the plate. The cutlery's alongside them.
Yes, all right. You know,
what
we're just
about
keeping our
the
fingers
fact that
crossed.
we've got a whole gang of owls here then? We're looking at a whole range of owl species. We've got our little owls, we've got our barn owls, we've seen our tawny owls. Yellow's been looking at those long-eared owls. How do all of these species live in harmony alongside one another? How do they space themselves out? Do they ever get into a fracas? Well, in fact, they do. Have a look at this. It's a bit brutal. I've got to warn you, it's a little bit brutal, this. And this was sent to us by Emily Warking from the UK Little Owl Project. And it shows a barn owl entering a little owl's nesting box and taking it on. Now, you may wonder what's happening here, but I've got to tell you that the little owl has young. You can see them there. And this barn owl has come in and sees an opportunity, yes, to predate the little owl's young. And eventually, after a hideous fight in this cramped space, can you imagine? This is total darkness inside there, Michaela. What a nightmare scenario that is. And there, the barn owl goes out with a little owl chick.
That's really quite brutal, actually. It's like being in a panic room, isn't it? When someone comes in and attacks you, it's going to give me nightmares.
I'm not familiar with that experience, but look, I'll tell you what, if you hold this, I'm going to build an owl pyramid here. Now, at the top of the pyramid, the supreme owl predator is the European eagle owl. There are a few of these birds in the UK, argument raging as whether they're natural species or not, but in Europe, they're very definitely at the top of the pyramid here. And they spend quite a bit of time feeding on other owls. In one study, they predated 62 tawny owls, so they're undoubtedly up there like that. And in the same study, those European eagle owls predated no less than 118 long-eared owls. In fact, when it comes to owl-on-owl crime, these are the most frequent victim, the long-eared owl. Tawny owls will also predate them, and they will also predate, yes, the barn owl. So you've got eagle owls eating the tawny owls eating the barn owls, and I'm afraid to say that just about everything eats the little owl. So again, eagle owls will take these, but I have to say the most frequent predators seem to be the barn owl, and that's probably because there's more of an overlap in their habitat. These are principally woodland species, where these are perhaps woodland edge or associated with man-made structures. But yes, there's quite a lot of predation within the owl group. An owl pyramid live on TV. Thank you very much.
I love these, they're brilliant. Anyway, let's go to Gillian, who is in search of a bird that I can do a pretty good impression of, actually. Shall I do it? OK, here goes.
OK, it's a decent effort, Michaela. Yes, I'm at the RSPB Reserve at Oldmoor in Yorkshire. Like so many places we've seen this week, this place was a coal mine. It's now this beautiful reserve, and it is the best place, one of the best places in the country to see this bird. The black-headed gulls give away its presence, and there it is. That is a bittern. It is an absolutely stunning bird and rarely seen like these. The gulls have been mobbing. We've seen these feeding flights for the last few days, and the gulls will not leave them alone. Now, this is a female coming back from a feeding flight, and as she lands in the reed bed, that's where her nest is. Now, we haven't seen just one. We've seen 3 females returning on feeding flights for the whole time that we've been here. And it's just in this one tiny little patch. They stay for a few hours and then head out again on more feeding trips. This is a busy time for the females. The males are not involved in nesting or provisioning, so the work is all down to them. And off they go again for another feeding trip. And again, look at that crop, so full. You can see that this area is really, really good feeding grounds. Now, these birds are normally hidden away in the reed beds. You can see them behind me, and they rarely come out. So this was really incredible behavior to catch. But we didn't just see this, we saw something else. Now, this is a female, and she's heading up the reeds. And you can see she's using her bill to pull herself up. And they do this sometimes to sun themselves, but there's an even more important task, and that's preening. They're feeding primarily over here on eels. This is messy, messy business. The slime covers their feathers, so this is a good opportunity to maybe get a little bit of a break from the chicks, but to get their feathers in prime condition. We also saw something else. Now look here, there are 2 bitterns in this shot, but these aren't the females. If you look carefully over here, you can see that this one is lacking the malar stripes. These are the stripes that extend down from the base of the bill that are characteristic of the adult. And this is absent here, so these are juveniles. The juveniles will leave the nest at around 2 weeks old on exploratory trips, but these ones are much bigger and they are sure to fledge soon. So this is an incredible success story for this reserve. These are really, really shy and elusive birds and difficult to see, and they have them breeding here very successfully. Since 2012, 18 chicks have fledged. Year on year, that's 1 or 2 chicks. A couple of years ago, they had 10 chicks fledge. That's a bumper year. And so that really, really goes to show how you can create an incredible habitat from absolute devastation by cleaning up the waterways, providing the right habitat, and this is what you get. Nationally, however, in England, it's estimated that only 14% of waterways are judged to be healthy. So let's join Michaela now as she goes on a journey to Bristol's waterways and joins a group of really enthusiastic plastic hunters.
As the River Frome flows into the heart of Bristol, it joins the River Avon. Any rubbish and toxins in the water are spread further through the whole environment and ecosystem.
It's one thing to be collecting rubbish from a stream or river, but it's a somewhat bigger challenge to be a volunteer trying to pick up the litter in the harbour. Hi, guys!
John Peters Coleman is part of the Bristol Clean Up Harbour project, a monthly event that invites anyone to come along and pick up floating rubbish in the harbour, with the assistance of Bristol Ferries.
John, I'd imagine there's quite a lot of plastic litter that you can find in the harbour.
There's an awful lot of litter of all kinds knocking around in the harbour. Yeah, plastic, tin cans, a lot of polystyrene.
I guess after a weekend it's particularly bad. I mean, along here there are a lot of bars and pubs and restaurants.
Particularly over the summer months, that's going to get worse and worse. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of litter.
What sort of people volunteer to do this sort of thing?
We get all sorts. We do have a hardcore of regulars. The stand-up paddleboarders are great. They can get into little nooks and crannies where we can't get because they're smaller.
This is obviously where it's all accumulated. A shoe? Oh gosh, what is that? I'm going to put that in there. Oh, someone didn't finish their beer off there, I don't think.
Some of the wildlife will be eating this stuff, and we've had a cormorant, for example, with a six-pack that you get around cans of lager with that stuck around its neck.
Oh, no.
So they had to free the cormorant from that. Mm-hmm.
And have you noticed that it's much cleaner since you guys have started to volunteer?
It varies. It is a bit of a Sisyphean task because no sooner have you cleaned up one stretch than the next day you can walk past and there will be more litter there. So it's non-stop, really.
It's actually only once you get out into the harbour that you realise just how much rubbish is in the water. But I tell you, these guys are doing a really good job. They are doing a good job, but it is quite labour intensive. Wouldn't it be brilliant if you could put something in the harbour that did the job itself? Well, some local Bristol residents did a bit of crowdfunding and they bought one of these. Now, this is a sea bin or a floating rubbish bin, and it moves up and down with the tide and it sucks in water and floating rubbish. The water's pushed out again, the rubbish collects in the catch bag, and then they obviously empty the rubbish and put any of that seaweed back in the waterways. And that can collect 90,000 plastic bags a year, over 16,000 bottles and over 35,000 single-use cups, things like coffee cups. Brilliant idea. It should be in the harbour this month, and it'd be really interesting to see how successful that is. Now, yesterday we did an item about picking plastic up one bucket at a time. It had a great response on social media. Lots of you sent pictures in of you doing exactly that, but this is my favourite. This particular tweet was a favourite. This is from Jane H. Oh, look at that dog. At least one bottle a day for nearly 13 years brought home to recycle, and that's approximately 4,380 bottles so far. I think that dog needs a medal, a one bottle at a time medal. Then this came from Janet Palmer, who said, credit to Springwatch for urging plastic clean-up, but the only real way to tackle this is to cut usage. Remember, it can only be recycled twice. A few of you did say that. Why aren't we talking about reducing? Well, I think that's fairly obvious, isn't it? We have to do the 3 R's. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Make sure that you reuse your bags when you go shopping, reuse your coffee cups, have a reusable one and a water bottle as well. I think we should all be doing that, and we should all be getting in a habit of doing it. This one is from Abby Golding, and it said, we've been hearing a lot about picking up waste and plastic, but no one ever says what we should do with it. Should we put it into the recycling? Now, yes, put it into recycling. Obviously, none of these suggestions are ideal, but if you put it in a rubbish bin, then it's going to end up in a landfill site. But that is preferable to it staying in the waterways and affecting our wildlife. So yes, if you can recycle it, and some organisations are actually putting out recycled bins in places where people are doing litter pickups. So loads and loads of ideas, and I'm sure we'll come up with even more. We love hearing your comments, we love getting your photographs, and as you know, there are lots of ways that you can get in touch.
The easiest way to reach us is to go online and be our friend on social media. You can like us on Facebook, adding your pictures and comments to our page. Follow us on Instagram and tag us in your photographs. Or tweet us your questions at BBC Springwatch. And don't forget you can watch the live cameras day and night at bbc.co.uk/Springwatch.
Now then, on Monday we introduced you to a whole suite of farmland birds, and my favourite and the most beautiful of them was the yellow wagtail. We have a pair nesting about 1 kilometre in that direction in the middle of a cornfield. We've got a camera on that nest, so let's go and have a look at that now. There we are, it's in the cornfield. That's the male. Look at that male, stonking lemon yellow, and that's the nest at the base of the corn, and not far away from a farmer's track actually. But the parents have been bringing in all kinds of insects. They are insectivorous birds, of course, moths, all kinds of mayfly, plenty of insects around at the moment. And over the last 24 hours we've seen that the chicks are actually getting far more active, and this is quite common, Chris, in ground nesting birds, isn't it? Is that they'll move around before they can fly, so that if anything comes along, of course they can jump. They can scatter. This is
But
the
you notice
female.
they've started wagging their non-existent tails.
That's incredible. Look at that. And the amazing thing is,
it's got no tail, but it's trying to wag it.
nobody knows why, do they?
No.
Nobody knows why wagtails wag their tails. But there we are, and look. So they're getting fed further and further away from the nest now, which is a good thing, really, because you never know. You know, we've talked about a lot of the predators here. There are kestrels, there are buzzards, there are red kites, there are stoats here as well. So they've got to be incredibly careful, and then they'll hunker down. There they go. And keep warm at night in that nest there. And look at the male. The female, because she's been going off feeding a lot more, getting food for the youngsters, the male's spent a lot more time just sat up on the corner. Look, a weasel. Unless we're very careful, it'll be another chapter in Weasel Armageddon.
You say it with a smile, Yolo.
No, I'm bleeding inside. Bleeding inside.
Let's go live to our barn now, because one of our blackbird chicks is down on the ground there, and whilst we were looking at the yellow wagtails, the little owl has been out on the rafter and it's been looking down at this chick. I said to you, the owl has currently gone back into its nest. This is the female, of course, that's brooding the young. We don't know where the male little owl is at this point, but you can hear the blackbird's alarm calling there. They're fully aware of the fact that this jeopardy has not passed yet.
And I hate to say it, it is getting dark. The owl will get active, and it doesn't look good for blackbird chicks.
It actually doesn't look good, does it? I mean, I know I like to be positive, but, you know, it doesn't look great, does it? Let's have a look at our Goldcrest, because they may well fledge, they may be gone tomorrow. What can we see there? They're completely hunkered down, so they're not going tonight, which is a good thing. But as I say, you may see them go tomorrow morning. Should we take a bet on that?
Tomorrow morning, I reckon, yeah.
Yeah, what time?
8:30.
8:30?
No, I've given up this gambling thing.
Come on.
He lost.
I reckon they'll go at 6:30 myself. That's what I say. That's all we've got time for today. What is coming up tomorrow? We've got a very exciting new camera. This buzzing with excitement we are to launch our bee box camera with red mason bees.
And I'll be visiting a fantastic marine nature reserve on the Isle of Arran up in Scotland.
And we'll be catching up with those long-eared owls. A global first, we think. Live long-eared owls, absolutely fantastic stuff. Do join Maddie Moat at 1:30 for Wild Academy, of course. That's on iPlayer and the Red Button and our website. We'll see you again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Keep your eye on those blackbirds.
See you then. Bye-bye.